Welcome back to Unleashing You. Today, I speak with Lisa Broberg, a nurse of 14 years and certified functional medicine health coach. Lisa is on a mission to support overstressed high achievers in prioritizing their well-being. Having navigated a diverse 12-year nursing career alongside her own profound healing journey, she transitioned from traditional nursing to holistic healing, driven by a desire to address root causes. Fusing her experience, she empowers clients to optimize their health, manage stress with ease, and cultivate self-love through a variety of holistic modalities that honor your mind, body, and spirit. Lisa is the coach she wished she had during her own journey, guiding others to embrace their highest potential and radiate their inner light. Lisa is a friend and client and will also be teaching a healing session at the Unleashing You retreat. She is a fantastic human with incredible knowledge, and I know you're going to find this conversation so helpful. So let's get started. Before we begin, I want to make sure that you have the Unleashing You retreat on your radar, because just the fact that you're tuning into this podcast means the Unleashing You retreat is right up your alley. The reason I created the Unleashing You retreat is because as women, we tend to look to everyone else for the answers. We somehow think that everyone else knows better than we do, when in reality, tapping into your own intuition is actually the key to living a happy and fulfilled life. And that's how I've created the career and life I have now, and what we'll teach you how to do during this retreat. An inner shift like this will leave you with tools that you'll use for the rest of your life. This retreat is so much more than a girls' trip. This is a transformation. If I've piqued your interest, I want to personally invite you to join us in Steamboat Springs, Colorado on September 19th through the 22nd. During our time together, we will go through coaching workshops and other deep personal development activities that will uncover aspects of yourself you never even knew. Work like this would take months or years to do on your own, and we're going to get you there in just a few short days. Not to mention, we'll be staying in a gorgeous mountain home, complete with a private chef, so you don't have to lift a finger. If you are ready for a pampering getaway where you can recharge your batteries and feed your soul, send me a message on Instagram or visit acrprofessionalcoaching.com to learn more and reserve your spot. Spots are very limited, so do not wait. And I'll see you in the mountains. Now, let's get on to today's show. Welcome to Unleashing You. This podcast is your permission slip to create success your way. I'm your host, Amanda Riffey, a certified success coach and female business leader who has climbed her way up the corporate ladder. I've been through burnout and back and found the tools to bring fun and enjoyment to my career while creating powerful results and leading in a way that feels authentic to me. This show brings you conversations with women just like you who have created massive success for themselves and are doing it in their own way. We'll hear about their personal journeys of growing their career while still prioritizing the things they love most. If you are ready to be challenged and encouraged to reach your next level, then buckle up, sister, because the road to dreamy success begins here. Let's dive in. Hey, Lisa, welcome to Unleashing You. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I feel like this has been a long time coming. You and I have been working together for months at this point. And we're finally having you on the podcast, and I'm so excited about it.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. I think this is going to be such a meaningful episode. I know I have learned so much from you just around health and nervous system and somatic healing and, so many things. You're just a wealth of knowledge that I'm excited to be able to share this with our listeners today as well.
Thanks, Amanda.
Yeah, of course. Okay. So for those of you who don't know you, can you share with us just a little bit about your story, your background? Like, how did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, so I've been a nurse now for 14 years, and I've dabbled in a nice variety of settings, many that were very traumatic and many that were not so much like life-threatening, but very insightful into the human condition. And really what I've seen across all the different settings that I've worked in with humans and healing was that, I was realizing that the healthcare system just really wasn't set up to actually make people heal or help facilitate healing. And got to kind of a crossroads with my own health where I wasn't getting answers for actually addressing the root cause and was really only finding prescriptions and procedures as solutions when that wasn't good enough for me. And I wanted to understand what was going on with my body. And I wanted to understand how to address those things. And it wasn't until I really hit rock bottom mentally during the pandemic working as a nurse where I found functional medicine, and it just made so much sense, not just from a physical standpoint, but also mentally and spiritually, how they blend East and West. And it's very rooted in science, but also very much acknowledges and honors the spiritual and mindset side of things. And so once I kind of discovered what that felt like from the patient side, I had been hearing about it, but never experienced it. Then I was kind of like, I can't go back. And so I was still working. At that time, I was in primary care and started taking my certification course, and I got certified in functional medicine health coaching. And then we moved from California to Colorado a couple of years ago. And my husband basically encouraged me to just go for it and do what I really wanted to do instead of getting a real job. And so that's what I've been doing for the last 2 years. And so just, using the body as this really powerful tool to guide us and to show us what we're needing, mind, body, and spirit. We've lost our connection with, a lot of us have lost that connection with our body. And so my goal is to help bring that back.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes. And I have been a client of yours as well. And so I can say firsthand, you are so knowledgeable about your field. And I love the way that you really do. And you said this so beautifully of bringing together science and spiritual in this just wonderful mix of healing ourselves with both our bodies and our minds. And, I'm a huge advocate for that as well. And one thing that I know you are very passionate about working with high achieving women. So obviously that resonates with me. I'm sure it resonates with a lot of people listening today. What made you want to help that group specifically?
I think in a way, it's another version of myself for those of us who are continually looking to improve ourselves. And we're not looking for shortcuts. We're looking for true value, and we're looking for truth, and we're looking for something deeper. And we tend to, strive for the best. And I think in that journey, in that kind of way of being, there can be perfectionism that gets in the way, and there can be even people pleasing things that get in the way. And how that actually, when I say get in the way, it gets in the way of our health. It can get in the way of our mental health, our physical health. And so I just feel that high achieving women, they tend to give a lot to other people and tend to sacrifice some of themselves often, not all the time. The way that I make that connection is that I see how high achieving women have disconnected from part of themselves often in the pursuit of whatever that goal is that they're working on, or goals, plural. So the way I see my role is bringing you back to yourself.
That is so beautiful. And I can speak as a high achieving woman myself. Whenever I know that I'm getting close to burnout, obviously we've talked about this before and plenty on this podcast of my bouts with burnout. And so now I'm very well aware of those signs and symptoms for me. But even when I start to get any of those signals, the first thing to go for me is my health. Every single time it gets to the bottom of the list, like I've got all these things I need to do or people I need to take care of or, whatever the thing is, my health always gets put at the bottom. What would you say to me or to anyone listening who resonates with that?
I think that's part of the character. It's often part of this like avatar of the high achieving person, especially women, because as women, we are nurturers and we are kind of innately holding ourselves responsible for others' well-being. And with the health, the way that it comes into the health is like, especially when it comes to burnout, if I'm trying to talk to you directly, you realize now, and you said it yourself, like when you see that your health starts to take a toll, the way that I connect it is that like we're not honoring ourselves at an energetic level. We're not honoring ourselves, and our body feels that disconnection. Our mind's disconnected. We're not allowing ourselves to engage in like what normally brings us joy. Often that joy piece gets put on the back burner and forgotten like in the long term because it's viewed as like this privilege, as like this extra, when actually it's so important for our spirit and for our overall well-being for us to find fun and joy and pursue things that light us up. But when we let that go to the wayside because we're focusing on all the responsibilities and all of the everything else to take care of everyone else, and then we start to find ourselves disconnected, stressed out, it's easy to just, get lost in the sauce, so to speak. And then with that stress, that nervous system dysregulation, then our hormones and our immune system take a hit because they're all interdependent on one another, which I can talk about. But yeah, it's just that part of disconnecting from ourselves in the pursuit of taking care of everyone else is like a common theme, especially in America.
Yeah. And you've talked to me before, and I know you work with your clients on this concept of like this three-legged stool. So do you want to talk a little bit about that and what that means?
Yeah. So I call it the stability stool. So the way that I describe it, and this is actually, it is a functional medicine concept. It's the neuroendocrine immune axis. What that means is like your health is sitting on this three-legged stool. And if you think about the three-legged stool as this object that can only stand with all three legs present, and that if anyone is broken or if it's wobbly, it's either not going to stand or it's going to be wobbly. The whole thing's going to be wobbly if one of those is off. That to me depicts the interdependence between the nervous system or stress, the endocrine system or hormones, and the immune system or our body's ability to fight inflammation. And when you think about, hormones are these chemical messengers that basically dictate all the different processes that happen in our body. Our nervous system is even higher than that. That's our brain, that's our spinal cord, our peripheral nerves. It's also our mind and like how all of those early childhood programming of like who we are and how to behave and all that stuff interferes or interacts with the world. And then we have our immune system, which is our gut, our liver, like our body's ability to maintain health. Like an example is, let's say you are burnt out, you're stressed. If you've noticed, if you're a human, you know that when you're stressed out, you get sick more easily. That's because that stool is wobbly and your immune system is affected. Also, if you're stressed out, you might have an irregular period. That's the hormonal system responding to that nervous system being wobbly. That's just one example, but there's so many ways that this interacts with one another. So I really use that as a way to help people understand their body and understand that these symptoms that they're experiencing are for a reason. It's the body trying to grab your attention and be like, hey, something needs you. We need your attention over here. Like something's wrong. And if you listen and you give your body what you need and and you have a way to check in with yourself to examine and kind of take inventory of things, you can either nip it in the bud or you can give yourself what you need to prevent it from getting worse. So that's the three-legged stool.
Yes. And I think what's so interesting about that is, number one, like you said, how everything is interconnected and it can't stand on its own when we're neglecting one of those areas. And that everything that's happening within our bodies is happening for a reason. And that's what I love about your approach, is getting to the root of, let's figure out what's going on. Like maybe it's something in your environment. Maybe it's something, stress that you're creating. What are those things? Because sometimes it's not always obvious to us, especially when we're in it, that, oh, this is what it really is. And so absolutely love your approach. And I love your ability to people to ask those right questions and use your intuition and curiosity to help us figure out how we can feel better. So one of the things I think would be interesting to touch on here is you are really passionate about not only working with high achieving women like we talked about, but helping them radiate their highest vibe self. And I'm just like, that is just the coolest tagline ever. What does that mean to you?
For me, highest vibe self means that you are living in alignment with what makes you you, while honoring your gifts, your strengths, all the things that make you you. And at a deeper energetic level, it's also fueling your body with high vibe foods in a high vibe environment. You're really being intentional about the energy that you're surrounding yourself with. So the people that you're with, whatever you're watching or listening or reading, and really cultivating your living experience to be in the direction that you feel called. Ultimately, this is in alignment with who you feel you are or who you want to become. And so when I think of being your highest vibe self, it's mind, body, and spirit in alignment, and that you have really accepted, embraced, and are loving yourself. That's kind of how I think of it.
Yeah. And I know when you and I have worked together, I mean, we've talked about anything from movement, exercise, nutrition, what I'm eating, when I'm eating it, toxins, products that we could be using or surrounding ourselves with. We've done nervous system healing. I mean, when we think about the whole gamut, right, there's just so many things that we can look at or work on with a coach or with someone like you. And I know that could potentially feel overwhelming to people of oh my gosh, that's just so many things that I would need to potentially change or adjust. But I think it's focusing on what are the priority things for you in your moment. And that's where I think, working with someone like you is just so helpful. I hope you're enjoying today's episode. I wanted to quickly interrupt to invite you to schedule your own private coaching session with me. A standalone one-on-one session is the perfect avenue for those times when you need a kickstart towards your next goal. We can unpack so much in 50 minutes. You will leave your session feeling inspired, motivated, and with clear next steps that feel so aligned with you. These private coaching sessions are the quick hits that will uncover your mindset blocks and get you back on the fast track to whatever you're working toward in your career or life. Your session is your time, so we can work through anything that will impact you the most. Let me help you finally see your blind spots so that you can get out of your own way and head toward the next amazing version of you. Send me a message on Instagram or visit acrprofessionalcoaching.com to book your session today. Now, back to the episode. What do you see as some of the most common challenges or symptoms or things that your clients are experiencing when they come to you? So I'm thinking of somebody listening to this and looking for some tangible examples of like, oh my gosh, this is something that, I should be doing something about?
I think most of the time, I would say most of the people that come to me are looking for weight loss. And the thing about weight loss, especially when we talk about American health, weight loss is not just about calories in, calories out, exercise, blah, blah, blah. It is not that simple. And weight loss, the body's retention of weight can be a combination of many things. It can be related to nutrition, obviously. Like that's the very obvious thing that you can start to tackle. But also stress, when we are living in a chronic state of fight or flight, freeze or fawn, if we're like constantly, if our nervous system is activated, our body's not going to feel safe. And our body is going to hang on to something that's going to keep us surviving, which in many cases is weight. And there's also, the toxin aspect. American life is very toxic. It's like, it's really on the consumer's shoulders to bear that burden of weeding through everything and really trying to minimize their exposure. And I don't say eliminate because that's really unrealistic, but to minimize your exposure to toxins, because as we're learning, as the data is really showing, many of these toxins that we're constantly exposing ourselves to, whether we know it or not, are affecting our hormones, are affecting our nervous system, and are affecting our state of inflammation. So when it comes to weight loss, that's usually part of it. So we've got the hormones and nervous system, the immune system, all of that playing a part. And of course, nutrition is a huge factor. But spiritually too, like at an energetic level, that's kind of tied to the nervous system, depending on how we are or are not living in alignment with what we feel is right for ourselves, or if we are honoring ourselves, or if we even are in touch with ourselves, like that disconnection from self can often be part of a weight loss journey and being able to love yourself. And I think in America, obesity is something that's very prevalent, but also autoimmunity is becoming more and more prevalent with like thyroid issues, with gut issues. Those are the things. And again, every individual, every body is different. So we are all constructed differently. And for some people, it may present as weight gain. For some people, it may present as hormonal dysfunction, autoimmunity. For some people, it may present as gut health. And I think it's really a matter of meeting the person where they're at and taking inventory of like how they view themselves and what they're bringing into their experience, like where they're working, who they're interacting with on a regular basis. Are they setting boundaries? Like there's so many things, but it's really about like seeing the person in their situation and asking questions about how they're perceiving their life and figuring out where they're satisfied, where they're not. And then also taking those like that tangible inventory of like, okay, tell me what you're having for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Tell me how you're moving your body. Tell me how you're spending your time outside of work, those kinds of things.
Yeah. And that is such a great explanation too of the importance of coaching and how coaching works. Because, I'll get questioned all the time like, well, what do you work on with your clients, or what do you do, or what's your program, or, and of course there are parameters to that, but it is so customized to the person, because you have to be able to dig in and really get to, in my case, much of what I do is mindset. And so, we're really digging into like, what are those inner thoughts? What's going on in there? And that's something that's going to be unique to each person. And I think of that so similarly to what you were just saying of like really digging into who they are, what they're doing, how they're spending their time. And then those priority things are going to come out of that. It's not a one size fits all solution for every person.
Yeah. And then even like even as you get started with all of those tangible things and even some intangibles, as you start to dig deeper and then you start to uncover the mindset behind it all, and you can start identifying limiting beliefs and how they're managing their stress or not. And like stress management is it's been such a major thing for me in my journey that now, like, I know that because, like you said, burnout, that is by far the easiest thing for me to get lost in the sauce about is my stress management. And I've come to really embrace somatic experiencing and using my body as a tool to tell me what I need in the moment. And it's not just about like what I'm feeling in my mind and analyzing, we can easily get very cerebral about things, but we forget that actually if we can drop into our body and listen, and I know that you've had this experience too about how powerful that can be. And when I think of stress management and nervous system regulation, it's not like the way I describe it is like we all have a bucket, and that bucket is our capacity to hold stress and to like be able to get through all the things that life throws our way. And when our bucket gets full, which most of us are like, we've got like this much left at the top that we can every day, like that's our capacity. And when at the end of the day, we sit in front of the TV, we Netflix, or we doom scroll, or we have a couple of glasses of wine or something, like that can chip away a little bit, but it's never going to actually create this like deeper capacity. That kind of like superficial, quote unquote, self-care is not really managing our stress, because it's not lengthening our fuse. It's not deepening our capacity. It's just like, it's kind of like leaving us to start the next day with the same that we started with that day, with very little to work with. And so when we can do the deeper nervous system regulation, where we're allowing ourselves to feel what we're feeling, to let that energy, because emotions are energies in motion, and when we can let that energy be acknowledged and felt and processed efficiently, it doesn't stay with us. And then that's how we slowly chip away and we build that capacity for us to move through life without getting overwhelmed. So that's another facet of that three-legged stool.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think about, like you were talking about, like that capacity to hold stress. And I get the question all the time, like, you're doing all of these things all of the time. Like, how do you have time to do everything? And of course, there's, lots of tips and tricks and things like that. But I also think that I've done so much inner work to expand my capacity to be able to hold things. And knock on wood, I have not been sick, and I really could not even tell you how long. And my kids still bring home stuff, and and like, again, I'm not totally immune to getting a cold or whatever, but that's not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence that I've done so much work in this area, and now I do feel healthier. I still have major health goals that I want to continue to grow, but when I think about how far I've come from when I was super stressed, burned out, sick a lot, all of those things, there's really something to it. It's not luck. It's not a coincidence.
Right. Yeah, because you're bringing more stability to that stool. So things are more tightly secure. When you're supporting your nervous system and you're supporting your stress response, that is it's also indirectly giving your immune system support, and you're also giving your hormones support. And so when we introduce things like stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline and all these things that over time, if we're constantly stressed out, can contribute to chronic inflammation, can downplay our immune response, then that's when these bugs, these pathogens, whatever, take hold of us. But when we can maintain and prevent us from really like getting stuck in that, it's kind of like, I was talking with another client the other day about this, because she was saying the same thing, how well she's managing her stress now. And she's like, I can't even remember the last time I really was stressed out. Like I just let it come and I move through it and I'm good. And it's kind of like a fever. Like I liken it to a fever. So for instance, like I don't give myself, my husband, my kids Tylenol. If anyone gets a fever, we let it break and we support it with like cooling measures. And this is not medical advice, but I'm just saying the body is wise. The body is designed divinely to do its thing. And when we interfere with the fever, first of all, Tylenol depletes the body of glutathione, which is this like major component of our immune response. So not only are we ripping ourselves of that immune response, but we are taking away that heat that the body actually is designed to destroy these pathogens, right? And as this fever is now diminished, it prolongs that sickness. It takes us longer to fully recover. Whereas if we just let the fever take hold and 24 hours, 48 at the most, we're back to normal because we let our body do our thing. It's the same thing when we have emotions that feel very heavy. We like get scared to feel it. And so we push it aside. We either distract ourselves, deny ourselves, we diminish what we're feeling, or, we just are so resistant to feeling it that we look outside to like avoid it. But if we were to just allow ourselves to feel it and let it move through, we can move on like so much quicker.
So much quicker.
Yeah. And that's kind of how like you're able to, it's not that you're not going to experience stress. It's not that you're not going to feel overwhelmed. It's just that you can acknowledge it, you can feel it, and you can let it pass and move on and not let it derail you, because you have this mindset, this tool set now that you know it's not going to hit you the same.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. I couldn't agree more. And I love this conversation because I hope it's giving people some realizations around things that we can do something about, right? We're not meant to be stressed and burned out. We're not meant to be sick all the time. We're not meant to just rush and rush and rush. And these physical symptoms that can be showing up, whether it's headaches, rash, like whatever the thing might be, like it's there for a reason. So let's get to the root of what it is, because just like you said towards the beginning, like we are meant to find joy. We are meant to have fun. We are meant to enjoy this beautiful life. And that's what I love so much about what you do for people is help us bring back some of that fun and that joy through our health. So you are going to be joining us at the Unleashing You retreat in September, and you're going to be doing some healing with our guests. And I am so excited because I know a lot of what's in store, and I know our guests are going to be super pumped. What would you say to someone who is thinking about attending the retreat but is on the fence?
I would really encourage that person to tap into like, why are you feeling resistance? If it's something that you're interested in, if it's something that you feel called to, like, what is keeping you from doing the thing? And really get to the root of that. And also, like, when was the last time that you invested in yourself? When was the last time that you really treated yourself? Because it's not just a weekend, it's a journey. So I would just really, really try to understand why you're not pulling the trigger and doing the thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I think so much of that is fear, right? When we really boil it down, a lot of it is fear of what's on the other side, or what if it's not worth it, or what if I have to talk about deep stuff and I'm not ready to talk about it, right? And so I love your point on like, where's that resistance coming from? Because if you feel called to do something, that's your intuition. That is your inner knowing saying, hey, you're meant to do this. You're meant to be here. And then our ego, our fear, like all of those types of things start to creep in to tell us all the reasons why it's not a great idea. So, yeah, I know we're going to have a fabulous time. We are going to be doing so much inner work that's why I wanted to make sure that we had this healing session, because like you were talking about with that three-legged stool, right? We're going to be doing a lot of mindset and, all of those types of things. And I really wanted to bring in something to work on our physical bodies as well. And so I'm so excited about the healing we're going to be doing there too.
Yeah.
Amazing. All right, Lisa, if somebody's listening to this and they're like, oh my gosh, I need to connect with Lisa like ASAP, how do our listeners find you?
Well, my website is omnilivewell.com. That's OMNI livewell.com. By the way, Omni is basically, it means everything, everywhere, all at once, which is why, mind, body, spirit. But anyways, you can also find me on Instagram at livewell.lisa. I'm also the same on Facebook, livewell.lisa.
We'll link everything in the show notes for people as well. But yeah, Lisa, I'm so excited to work with you again at the retreat. And I know we're doing some other things in the meantime. And just thank you so much for this conversation. I really think people have probably walked away with some realizations around what we can do to better our bodies, better our mind, our spirit, and just really live a happier life.
Thank you, Amanda. And thank you. I just want to acknowledge you have also supported me. And I really appreciate that, the way that you have boosted me up and helped me work through all of my little ego things that come up to block me from doing the thing that I really feel is my purpose. And so thank you for your continued support too.
Yeah, of course. And thank you even for mentioning that, because we spent so much of this episode really, pouring into the listeners and what they can take away. And I always think it's important for us to, be that vulnerable and transparent of like, hey, none of us are perfect. We are all working through our own stuff. And that's one of the things that I love about this podcast is just normalizing. Like, we all have limiting beliefs. We all have mindset blocks that we are working through. We're always meeting our next edge with that next scary thing that's like, hey, I don't know if you're ready to do this. And so I love that you and I can just really lean on each other and each other's expertise in that as well.
Yeah, me too.
Perfect.
Very grateful for you.
Yes, I'm grateful for you. Oh my gosh, love you. All right. Thanks so much, Lisa.
Thanks, Amanda.
Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. If you'd like to continue this conversation, connect with me on Instagram and say hello. You can find me at AmandaRiffy_coaching. In the meantime, if you know you are ready to step into the next incredible version of you and want to completely accelerate your personal and professional growth, let's work together. I offer one-on-one private coaching as well as workshops and in-person events. There's really something for everyone. To learn more, visit my website at acrprofessionalcoaching.com or send me a DM on Instagram and start a conversation. And don't worry, I truly want all of us to succeed. So I promise I will never steer you wrong. Let's create a career and life you love. Chat with you again soon.